Gentili signore e signori, un cordiale buon pomeriggio da Andrea De Luca
e Stefano Garzelli.
Con le immagini stiamo vedendo dall'alto la città di Lissone, 46.000 abitanti, la città del mobile, qui la chiesa più importante, la prepositurale di Santi Pietro e Paolo, una chiesa del 1925. E mentre osserviamo le bellezze architettoniche della città del mobile, ci apprestiamo a vivere una grande giornata, perché oggi è la giornata di apertura del Trittico Lombardo con la 76esima edizione della Coppa Agostoni. Coppa Agostoni che è nata nel secondo dopoguerra, nel 1946. Una classica, Stefano.
Sì, una classica di fine stagione, corse sempre molto importanti dove i corridori vogliono fare molto bene, sono prove in avvicinamento anche al Giro di Lombardia, quindi sono presenti anche corridori importanti sia per provare a fare un
certamente l'atleta più esperto di questa formazione. Diversi anni fa aveva vinto anche il giro ciclistico Under 23 della Valle d'Aosta. Si tratta del bresciano Alessandro Bisolti.
Negli sprint ristretti ma non troppo, quest'anno ha vinto anche a San Vendemiano Anders Foldager con il dorsale 152, l'abbiamo visto tra i protagonisti anche il numero 124 sulle spalle di Alessandro Santaromita, il 123 anche lui un atleta da tenere in considerazione, Filippo Magli con il 122 Alex.
Per uno degli uomini più importanti del pelotone, vincitore di tappa anche la Vuelta di Spagna, Francesco Gavazzi col 134, un altro corridore interessantissimo.
Con il 103 Alex Higueren, il 102 sulle spalle di Floris De Tier e corre in casa praticamente lui che è di Nova, Marco Tizza.
It's one of the best times of the years, isn't it? Approaching the Giro di Lombardia, and hello and a very warm welcome to the Coppa Agostoni, Giro delle Brianze, Northern Italy, looking absolutely splendid in the sunshine today for the first of the three big races from Lombardy. Before the big race from Lombardy, it's the Trittico Lombardo beginning today. DSM signing in, one of several massive teams at the start today. Massive teams with huge, big name riders, like Simon Yates, alongside Filippo Zana. What a team this is, with Engelhardt in there as well, who started winning already this year. Jaco Alula bringing a strong team. Movistar with their Austrian champion Gregor Mühlberger. They were close last year with Alejandro Valverde, of course, now retired. Oyer Lascano, the Spanish champions here, as of course is rider leaving the team not too long distant future, Carlos Verona and Ivan Garcia Cortina. For Cofidis, this is the scene. La Fe, this Tour stage winner, the man who ended that 13-year drought. Benjamin Thomas there as well. And we race to and from the town of Lissone today, right in northern Italy. Maxime Bouet leaving the peloton soon. And he's been on the attack today, but he's up against a team like this. AG Desert Citroën with a really strong lineup. Look at that, Ben O'Connor, Kuznefroy, the likes of Vendrame as well, who's won a race or two in Italy. And this man won the race in Italy this year. Italian national champion Simone Velasco, racing for Astana, Kazakhstan.
Simone Velasco.
Well, young and old, they're here. And looking at an Alpecin Koenig team that has a couple of stars from esports making their way to the top level. Vergallito and Bogna. And the team with the defending champion. He wasn't wearing this jersey last year. Should Box wearing the number 1. And what a team to back him up. Here's she coming away from a rare GC win from him. Just the second in his career, the second of what's been a very good season coming in Luxembourg. Okay, this is the menu then. Out into the hills, beautiful Lombardy hills. 2 circuits basically. Up Sirtori. Rolling terrain, there's very little flat at all until the end today. And 195 kilometres on the menu with 3,200 metres of climbing. It's the second circuit that really makes things difficult. 4 laps of it as well. Colle Brianza, one of the big hills in this region. And then Lissolo, up to 522 metres, to be taken on 4 times. And the last climb of the 13 categorised climbs on the map today comes with 35 kilometres to go. After that, it's a couple of uncategorised climbs on the way, but mainly a really fast finish to this race, as it always is. Falls flat downhill to Lissone, where last year we had a sprint from a small group, won by Surbox. Not too many smiles at the start. There should have been, though. A beautiful sunny day. Big race in prospect. Perfect weather for it. The glorious Italian hills to race in. And at 11:25, maybe some of those straight faces were because we're getting towards the end of the season. That means 1 month now left to fight for your right to win. For some of the riders not heading off to the Tour of Guangxi, it's the last week or two. So some top names here. And before we had the early fight for the breakaway, this is how they rolled out of town. Eolo Cometa, one of the teams here, of course, with Spanish heart but Italian based. And at kilometre 0, they've almost stopped again. Finally, with Benjamin Thomas happy, as was Michael Gergel. A laugh about things once the VIPs and dignitaries were cleared off the road and the racing could begin. Benjamin Thomas, French rider, but of course, long time spent time in Italy, his partner's Italian. And we wait for the real entertainment at the finish line that will come, because it is a fast-moving race. For now, the spectators entertained by local dance groups. No laps around the finish today, so everybody with eyes on the apps, watching, of course, GCN Plus, as we get towards the final of the big laps. It's been an aggressive, attacking Coppa Agostoni so far. Giro delle Brianze is underway in the start of the 3 races that make up the Trittico Lombardo. There are only 52 kilometres remaining. It's a flying fast day, so let's get you quickly up to speed. 5 riders got up in the original breakaway, and some big names as well. Quinten Hermons was there. Maxime Bouet, not far now from saying goodbye to professional cycling. There's Oscar Rodriguez, who was there for Movistar. Marco Tizza and Matteo Vercer. There have been attacks, counter-attacks. We've had Jayco Alula and UAE Emirates, the 2 teams mainly working. And another group has just gone away, but you can see not too far behind, 200 to 300 metres, what's left of the peloton chasing on our final lap. Up and down Colle Brianza. And then the final climb of the day, which will be Lissolo. I'm Rob Hatch, alongside me Matt Stevens. And Matt, I know you love this time of year as well. The leaves are starting to fall. The weather's beautiful in Italy today. And just a couple of weeks left on European roads to get those big wins.
Yeah, it is a wonderful time of year. I mean, we've got a beautiful day, 27 degrees out on the road today. Long shadows heading into the afternoon. You can see the leaves are on the turn. We've got Lombardia about 8 days away. It's a beautiful part of the year. It's a part of the year that has its own true identity. There's nothing quite like it at all. And we do get some action-packed races. Today's races you've described already, Rob, just under 3,000 metres of elevation. But interestingly, the first part quite flat, and then the second part quite flat. So although it is a race that favours the lighter riders, the climbers and the punchers, and when you look through the field here, there's not many sprinters. There is still an opportunity for this to come back together a little bit, but we've still got 2 big climbs to go as we head towards the finish. Only 50 k's to go, but another ascension of the Colle Brianza, and then, as you say, the final ascent of the Lusolo. That comes with 35.7 k's to go.
A fantastic panorama on your screens, and that's all that's left of the peloton chasing on. 2 really small groups here, as we can see that Jaco Lula have a rider up the road. Agir Désert involved here. Looks as though Arkea have another rider up. Same sort of teams. Arkea, we didn't really see on the podium before, but they do bring Warren Barguil, who's racing some of the final races of his career at that team back in Brittany. He's moving back to DSM, where he started his career really in fine form over the winter. Cofidis with a rider up here. Movistar there. The Cofidis rider looks to be Lafay, actually.
Yeah, it's Barguil.
Ivan Garcia Corsina was there as well, and this is Formolo, Matt.
Yeah, Formolo finished inside the top 10 last year. It is indeed Warren Barguil that's just there too. Also in the mix as well, Ivan Garcia, who, again, one of the fastest riders. When you look at the field in terms of fast men at the finish, he is someone that you don't really want to take to the finish in a group, that is for sure. But clearly he's got exceptionally good climbing legs. And the gap is going out there, but this is a classy little move. It is Clement Berthet just at the back there for AG2R Citroën. So good move here, Rob.
Chris Harper completing that 6-man lineup that we've had our first look at for you there. Formolo, Berthet, Barguil, Lafay, Harper and Garcia Cortina. A man from northern Spain. And it's Alpecin Koenig alongside Astana Kazakhstan who are chasing on. Of course, you've got Movistar waiting in the wings. Agir Désert, the same with Jaco Lula. They're all happy because they've got riders up the road. UAE Emirates, they've got a rider up the road. Is it the rider they want in Formolo? Perhaps not in that group. Formolo, fantastic bike rider, isn't he? But sort of guy gonna need to win on his own, really, if he gets out there.
Yeah, certainly. It's we saw the ever-smiling Michael Gogol. He's on the front now, the Austrian, just with the Italian champion just behind. He's been going really well. They've had actually one of their best years, I think it's fair to state. Still not a stellar year, but they've had a number of wins across the board. But of the big teams here, it is, of course, Alpecin Koenig and Astana who've got to do the chasing, because all of the other World Tour teams, Rob, are represented up in front. 9 World Tour teams here, 6 pro teams and 5 continental teams, all Italian squads, but all the big World Tour teams, save for 2, are up the front. That's why there's only 2 riders drilling through at the front, and they're holding them only 13 seconds. But as you just said, Rob, it's already, there seems to be only 30 to 40 riders left in the bunch. And as I say, an attritional day and still 2 more climbs to go. But this group working really well together now.
One of the reasons, I imagine, as a pro bike rider, you don't mind as a big name being out in front here, because there's much less chance of being caught because there's not as much organisation behind.
No, not at all. And there's not the resource. It's not as if we have a breakaway that's gone over the top of the climb and we've got all the domestiques, everybody left in the bunch. There seems to be, there's only the fact that Alpecin Koenig have only managed to put 1 rider at the front. They've already had, as you said, Quentin Hermans, arguably their leader for this race in the move.
I was
already.
shocked to see that, actually.
That's quite an interesting move. Oscar Rodriguez was there, as you said, but they've only got 1 rider chasing, although they are doing a reasonable job so far. They've taken the top off it. 12 seconds is now the gap. And I can't see that Velasco himself would do any riding, but I'm struggling to see any other Astana riders in that group. You'd expect that Tejada and Battistella would be there. They are riders who can climb well, but right now it's only the Austrian Gogol on the front. Of course, it was Sjoerd Bax who won this race last year.
That's it for Gogol.
Yeah, they put the lid on, haven't they?
So this is Conchi moving up left-hand side. Oldani's with him as well. Just to see what happens here. Oldani, who's set to be leaving the team at the end of the season. Lascano's still there, Spanish champion. Good numbers for Jaco Lula. several decent riders still there for Olo Cometa, but they're not really doing any contributing to the pace setting. And I've seen one other of the Astana jerseys, who is Samuele Battistella, but he's hanging off at the back. And Matt, we saw the riders take a turn, then a graphic came up and it told us that we were starting for the final time, the fourth and final time, Colle Brianza, up to Piecastello, a 3.3 kilometre climb, and we're already starting to see not quite casualties, but strugglers, and that is Garcia Cortina at the back.
Yep, he's one of the riders you would have thought out of this group that would struggle. Good turn on the front by Chris Harper, keeping this pace high. It was, in fact, UAE Team Emirates who did a lot of the riding earlier on, but at the bottom of this climb is where it's at its steepest. There's a big step a couple of kilometres in, but it's 14% maximum gradients on this climb. 3.3 k's long, 6.2% average, then it just drops. So the top part of the climb where the KOM is actually measured is actually slightly downhill, but it's a nasty one and one of the longest climbs on the circuit, arguably the hardest. But as you see, this front group now reduced to 4. Now, anybody that wasn't in this front group, well, you'd imagine, would use the opportunity to try and accelerate across on this climb. But the group in front, we've got 4 exceptionally gifted climbers.
They're superstars, aren't they? Barguil there in the red jersey of Arkea. Lafay, who won a Tour de France stage this year. There's Formolo, of course, has Giro d'Italia stages to his palmarès. Harper, who's never really had too much of an opportunity to race for himself, but as a helper is one of the very best in the game. Cortina now is dropped. He's out the back. Berthet is also, unless he makes a big effort and somehow gets in touch here, he's going south, isn't he? And that, I guess, is going to bring 2 other teams back into the equation, unless these guys do make, well, what would be a miraculous comeback now to being dropped, Matt.
Exactly. They are getting distance. It won't be too long before you'd imagine, Rob, they're reabsorbed by the peloton. Formolo takes a look round. Lafay takes a sip. Such a rated rider. There was a lot of interest after that stage when it was San Sebastian when he took that win, wasn't it? A real, as well as being strong, it was one of the smartest moves of that Tour de France. Perfect timing when he did take the win. And as you said before, an extra special win. But he's staying with Cofidis for the next few years. And happy hunting ground, Italy, for him. A couple of years ago, of course, took that stage in the Giro too. But a little bit of looking around here, and just to answer your question about is it the right rider in front for Jaco Alula, and although Chris Harper is a rider that you need to offer up a lot of respect to, you'd imagine this is all about either Zana or Yates today, who are lurking behind. But at the moment, they don't need to do anything at all, and the way Harper's riding is keeping the pressure on here. Harper
in this group as well is seen in a different light, certainly without Garcia Cortina in there.
Exactly.
Chances improve for all of these guys now. 46.5 kilometres remain. This is Clément Berthet who's been dropped. Looks as though the rider trying to get across behind onto the wheel of Garcia Cortina will have come from the peloton. There are 4 riders remaining at the front of the race.
It does look like
16 seconds.
Yeah, sorry, Rob. It looks like, well, it's a little bit far to see, but it does look like it might be one of the riders from the Olo Cometa trying to come across the gap. It looks like the figure, actually, of Fortunato. And that little, very idiosyncratic silhouette he has. Great climber, Fortunato, of course. But I'd say the gap is opened out to a bit more than 15 seconds here, Rob, by the looks of it. Berthet, of course, just off the back, but I think the bunch looked to be about 25 or 30 seconds. And let's have a little look. It does appear to be one of the riders from Iola. And there is the Spanish rider just on his wheel there. Looks like it might be slow.
Like that.
Yeah.
With an all-Italian team today, by the way, Matt. And Gavazzi, who's not far from retiring now, racing away. Don't be surprised if he's on the move at any moment in these particular races. And Garcia Cortina able to hold on the wheel. And I'm with you, I think that gap is bigger than the 17 second they're telling us.
It definitely looks like it might be Albanese just by the way he's pedalling. He's a solidly built figure, such a good all-rounder, can sprint well, really
we've got
consistent.
Movement now as well,
there
Matt.
We go.
Movement on the right-hand side. Peloton, not enough pace in it, it's breaking up.
Some of the teams
off the front by one of those white jerseys. Maybe from AG Desert Citroën, of course, given their man was falling back. Let's wait and see. Got UAE Emirates jerseys in and around there as well. Now Total Energy on the move from this particular gun. And there is, well, it looks like the figure of Yates, doesn't it? That is Simon Yates.
Yeah, that's unmistakably Yates goes straight over. It looked like it was Pierre Latour, actually. It went straight over the top. That slightly ragged style of Latour. But a good move here by Yates. This means that Harper, he'll be getting that information, will knock it off. Just look at the pace of Yates here. Always goes well at the back end of the year. In fact, he's just consistent all through the year as Yates, isn't he? He really is. 4th place, of course, in the Tour de France. Just that one step off the podium behind his brother. And they do have a very good team here as well. But Yates now rocketing across this gap.
A real bike racer, Simon Yates, with 45 kilometres to go, has a teammate up the road in the shape of Harper.
He's got about 500 metres to the top of this climb here. This climb tops out with 44.9 k's to go, if our transponders are right. Just over the top it drops down. They drop off this one, then they've got about 9 kilometres to the top of the final climb of the day, the final categorised climb of the day, the Lisolo. This is Ben O'Connor on the front of another little group here, and just behind him is a man in form. That's Mark Hirschi.
Agir is there with Berthet being absorbed. Hirschi is there on the wheel. Garcia Cortina hanging in, so he's had a little bit of sliding room. It's actually not been a bad ascent for him at all, because if he's in a bigger group here, he'll be carried along, and if he survives one more climb, you know, a few people start looking around, he's suddenly in the big group at the end, isn't he? And it's exactly where he wants to be as a fast man.
No, totally. Yeah, this is a good little group. Ben O'Connor, of course, has been riding well at the back end of the year as well, and the other Italian race is leading into this one. And there is the bunch behind. It looks as if also in that group, it looked like it was Carlos Verona of Movistar too, who just latched onto the back there. But meanwhile, up in front, still Harper, Formolo, Budgie and Lefay. And somewhere in the gap, we've got Mr. Yates. But it looks like he's probably still about 10 or 15 seconds off this group. And Harper still driving, which is quite interesting.
Heading to the final climb of the day now. 10 kilometres, less it will be done. And after that, it's a very fast finish at this race, by the way. Lots of false flat downhill to the line with just a couple of lumps and bumps. As the gaps still look considerable enough, don't they? This is Group 2 on the road now at 19 seconds.
Yeah, this...
Simon Yates sits on the back of this group. He's got another teammate in as well, let's not forget. So this is a fantastic, fantastic performance. And you'd hazard a guess that the other teammate is Filippo Zana.
Yep, and right now they don't need to do any of the work. And they've got Harper working in front. There's a couple of the big teams that don't have representation in the front there. So you would imagine if it is Zana, of course, not now in the Italian national champs jersey, back in the blue and white of Jaco Alula, they can just sit back and let the others do all the pulling. And most of the responsibility appears to be on the shoulders of AG2R right now as well. Ben O'Connor, a willing participant in that chase, but it's gone out to 20 seconds now. And the rest of the peloton, the fragmented bunch now, that looks to be only 25 riders strong at 33 seconds.
Well, next on the menu for the fourth and final time today is Lisolo. Steep climb, as they all are around here. Not the longest. Sort of the foothills of the Alps, northern part of Lombardy. More hills than mountains, but it's beautiful nonetheless, even at this time of year. And we've got quite a very warm start to the autumn, actually. As you said, Matt, 27 degrees up in northern Italy. Very, very pleasant conditions when you get to this time in the afternoon as well. And the light's a little different, so it certainly looks like this time of year. But you've got that shorts and T-shirts weather as well. It's brilliant.
Exactly. No, it is absolutely gorgeous. That feeling of summer, but with a different kind of quality of light that you have as well. And it's so beautiful to head down to this part of the world at this time of year and to get those wonderful shots from the air as the forests and the woods start to turn. It really is super, super special. But this group's doing well. 20 seconds now. And the group back behind not making any inroads at the moment. It looks like it's swelled ever so slightly. Oh no, it's still the same number. 35 seconds is the gap from the front to the peloton. This is the group, I know we shouldn't use that word, chasse patate, to use the French. Is there an Italian equivalent, Rob, of being in no man's land? I'm not too sure there is. There probably is.
There probably is. Nothing that springs to mind here.
No.
They're just calling these guys the followers. Inseguitori. And of course, here she's been anything but a follower, hasn't he, in the last few weeks and months. He's been in fine form.
He has. He has 7 wins this year for the Swiss road champion.
including 2 stage races for the first time in Hungary and last week in Luxembourg. Just over 40 kilometres remain until the conclusion of the first of the 3 big races in Lombardy, before the biggest race in Lombardy. That's the Giro di Lombardia. Comes in just over a week now. We'll go down to Emilia on Saturday for racing there, and then resume at the start of the week with more coming up. Bernocchi and, of course, Tre Valli Varesine.
We've got Gran Piemonte as well, although it's technically not part of the triptych, but we've got Piemonte as well on Thursday, haven't we? So there's lots and lots of racing, all of which, of course, you can see here.
Front of the race, Formolo, Barguil, Lafay, Harper, all riders, by the way, who you'd expect to be involved, certainly at the business end of things, when we come to the biggest of the big ones that I'm talking about, the Tour of Lombardy. None of them massive favourites, Barguil the biggest name, of course, but you wouldn't be surprised if any of these 4 riders were up there at the business end towards the end, as we see the Agir des Arts Citroën riders swapping off turns. They are Berthet and, of course, O'Connor.
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting. If you just saw that group of 4 in front, the one rider, the significant rider who's not chasing now, or not riding, should I say, because they are, of course, in front, Formolo is now sat on. And now leaving it to the others to chase. But the beauty of that is that Hershey doesn't need to ride behind, and Formolo's decided from team instructions, well, I've got Hershey behind, who's possibly coming across, so I'm not going to ride. So, and Ulissi as well, so 2 very dangerous riders. Ulissi riding still well into the falling leaves of his career, but blimey, that guy is evergreen, isn't he? He really is to confuse 2 types of tree, evergreen and autumnal. Is deciduous, I think is the word, if you know what I mean.
Every day is a school day with you, Matt.
Indeed. There you go,
Formolo having a
look.
Something he's not happy about.
He was
by the way, the work being done by Agir des Arts, Matt, not really making an impression, because even though you've got Formolo sitting on here, they've got a 33-second gap now on that group. And I have to give you the kudos, because I've just had a double check, and your eyesight, not wrong with it, mate, because that was Vincenzo Albanese sitting on the back of that chasing group for Eolo Cometa.
Yeah, Albanese is on the move next year, isn't he? He's moving after several years at Eolo Cometa. And again, he's one of my favourite Italian second division riders, because he can do it all. He's just ridiculously consistent. He doesn't win very often, but he comes close. And one of their most memorable rides this year was the top was the podium in the Giro Sicilia, including an ascent of Mount Etna. This man can climb very well, looks like a pure sprinter, but believe you me, he is a real puncher, a good all-rounder, and dangerous in a group like this.
He'll be a World Tour rider next year, Matt. He'll no longer be in the second division. He'll be among the big boys in the Premier League. He's moving to Arcaire Samsic, to Brittany, to a French team. And he should be joining a team where he gets his own opportunities to do big things in perhaps the biggest races, and you know, gets to a stage where he's been around for a little while. He's from the south of Italy. He's been in this second division team, Eolo Cometa, who do not ride the Tour de France. And he could be desperately looking for that opportunity to ride the biggest bike race in the world, as we now see an opportunity for things to change again. And now we have Agir des Arts and Ben O'Connor on the move.
Yeah.
He's got Hershey anchoring in no man.
Yeah, Hershey's just bringing it. You know, Ben O'Connor is a very dangerous rider. So it's latched on. I think had he jumped across the gap and been with O'Connor, he may have actually worked, because he's got Formolo sitting on in front, and best to have a group of 5 out in front containing 2 UAE to give them more options. But on this particular occasion, he's just shut down the move, and this is giving the green light, or the permission, almost the unspoken permission, for Formolo to sit on behind. So right now Hershey's working. It's quite an interesting situation. Looking at, we know Lafay can sprint particularly well. I don't think Harper's that fast at the finish, but I tell you what, Warren Balgui in a flat finish doesn't look like he can finish quickly, but he's very, very quick. Won the French national road race from a group of about 6 or 7 a few years back. Won that fantastic Tour de France stage a few years ago too, from a real elite group of riders. So although he's a pure climber, he's got a real punch at the finish as well.
On to the final climb of the day, Lissolo, and 3.6 kilometres of it. Average gradient of 5%, but it's the maximum that peaks up to 15% that will scare people. Certainly with tired legs at the end of the season, what is left in the tank? Berthet is trying to empty the tank here to give an opportunity for O'Connor. 29 seconds, the gap's come down a little bit, and here goes O'Connor. That's Berthet done and dusted. And now the man from Western Australia, from Perth, must bring his best form.
Yeah, big acceleration there. Just looks like Albacini, sorry, just struggling to hold the wheel there. She really having to work hard. And the first opening couple of kilometres, well, first opening 500 metres of this climb aren't particularly steep. So the average gradient belies what most of the climb is actually like. And the steepest part of the hill just comes near the top. 15%, Rob, in the last 500 metres. It's a horrendous climb. Most of the steep part are bobbing between 8 and 9% all the way to the top, save just flattening over the top of the climb. But that little move, that little acceleration, hasn't done as much damage as I think the Australian would have liked.
A few Movistar riders still in the main group, but bad news for the main group. They're at 1:07 from the front of the race now, and they're at over 3/4 of a minute from the chasers, who we just saw, but no longer among the chasers. Movistar's Ivan Garcia Cortina, who's been dropped for a second time. He's out the back of that group after the acceleration from Ben O'Connor. No surprise, really, given the type of rider he is, as you see Formolo demonstrating that, nope, he ain't coming through. Situation looking good for Jaco Alula. The rider in the front, two riders in the chase and not having to work. Ben O'Connor certainly is. Albanese is just behind him. And then you have Mark Hirschi.
Yeah, he's not getting any assistance here at all. Two UAE sat on. We've got Yates sat on as well. I'd be a little bit worried if I was Ben O'Connor. He's got to be careful. He's such a... O'Connor is one of those eager riders, isn't he? He will work hard. But he knows the only way to shut this gap down now, he's not going to beat four riders on the flat going through and off. He's not going to do that on his own. He needs to do it on the climb itself, and that's why he's willing to dig in. He's taken the best part of 8 seconds off, but it's now Albanese. I keep getting confused with Albacini. Sorry, Albanese now on the front. A very similar sounding name, of course, the now retired a Swiss rider. And what's Yates doing on the inside? Another rider from Arkea Samsic just in there as well.
Tell you what, there's been another comeback from Garcia Cortina. He's really fighting for this today.
He certainly is. Just at the back of that group, not doing anything at all. You wouldn't expect him to either. It's just about hanging on in that group for as long as he can, because he'll be a potent threat. And so now the Australian going again. O'Connor with good legs today.
Yeah, he was dropped the first time that O'Connor attacked. Same. Not quite happening here. Garcia Cortina's fighting. It's Ulisi who's having to fight harder to hang on at the moment. O'Connor just cannot sneak away, though. They've got him in their pocket here.
Yep. Got about another 900 metres to the top of the climb. So about a K for these guys just behind. 1 kilometre of climbing. Ulisi is the rider suffering the most here. Pulling himself back into contention. Get back on the wheel there of Albanese, and he does it. O'Connor looks around. He's getting no assistance whatsoever. Must be very frustrating for him, because if this continues over the top, it's hard to see how this group is going to ride behind. Because there's no way O'Connor's going to want to drag them. He'll just get attacked left, right, and centre. So no wonder O'Connor is trying to get this group back. But it's a staccato style of racing. It's big acceleration. The gap comes to Hirschi, now goes over the top.
It is Hirschi who's making that move. 21 seconds, the gap's come down a little bit. Over that top he goes, diving down and ready to fight again. Mark Hirschi is in some form. And suddenly, UAE could have the opportunity, and we saw it, didn't we? Ben O'Connor trying and trying again. Just no chance to snap the elastic. Hirschi's gone. He's got a chaser. I think it's Zana this time, by the way.
Yep, Zana or Yates, isn't it? Definitely. That was a big acceleration. There's that little descent that's given him that added bit of momentum to push himself into the final part of this climb. Look, this is where the slopes really start to kick up in a minute, maxing out at 15%. But what a move by Hirschi. A dramatic, explosive acceleration that nobody could match at all.
And he's got the gap right down. Look at this. He can see the group ahead. Fights that bike from left to right. Last little part of the climb now. Well, it's anything but little. You can see Matt was telling you that it's 15% maximum, and this is the section.
It's one of those sorts of efforts, I mean, urged on by the Tifosi in this late summer sunshine. This is where the road just drops a little bit. He should get on here, and this is
now
the situation behind. Yeah.
Zana made the initial acceleration. He was just starting to park up at the side of the road, and Yates is trying to come across. Albanese fighting brilliantly. And as the four leaders go over the top, there is action at just 9 seconds behind, or even less now, because Hirschi is going under the arch himself.
Yeah, you imagine that Hirschi's going to get on here. Interesting that Formula went through to the front. That could have been just to slow them down. He'll get information on the radio that his teammate is coming across. And quite often the easiest thing to do is just to roll to the front and just to ease ever so slightly as you roll through, just slowing things down ever so slightly. And that'll mean it's a little bit easier for Hirschi just to close that final a couple of 100 metres gap. And here's that group behind being led by Yates. It's split. His teammates are just behind as well.
That's good news for Dzeko Lulu, because at the time you saw Zana on the side of the road and it looked as though he was at a standstill, but he's found a second win. He's fighting to stay on, and the numbers might not just be good for UAE, they might be even better for Dzeko Lulu.
Yeah, if Ulissi gets on, it's 3v3, isn't it? That's assuming that it all comes back together. But right now, as you say, they are the team with the numerical superiority. Harper in the front, and then Zana and Yates in that group behind. So fascinating stuff here. But most of the climbing done now, Rob, isn't it? We plunge down. We don't plunge down. We descend gradually now for the next sort of 6 or 7k, and then it's a gently undulating run into the finish in Luzerne. The wind will be ever so slightly in their face. It's only about 5 or 6 k's an hour today, but coming from the south, and they're travelling in a southwesterly direction back to the finish. So a little bit of a headwind for them, but a great ride here by the Swiss road champion. He is a man on great form. And this sort of circuit right up his alley, and it looks like he's going to make contact here, Rob. Super ride by him.
Hirschi is on a mission here. Look at his demeanour, the power he's putting through, the way he was able to get away from that group. Nobody on the road behind that we can see in the shot, but he can certainly see them now, from 4 to 5 and 5 stars at the front and leading Coppa Agostoni. 34 k's to go.
I'd imagine Harper and also Barguil and Lefebvre are thinking, OK, we've got reinforcements, but we didn't really want it to be another rider from UAE Team Emirates who's got as much of a turn of speed as Mark Hirschi as well, because we know he can sprint well on a climb, loves an uphill finish, but he's OK on the flat as well from a small group. So right now, it is advantage UAE Team Emirates. Where is the chase going to come from behind? It has to come from Movistar, and it has to come from Yolo Kometa, because the other 3 riders in the mix here have got representation in front.
There'll be worries in that front group, though, still about Ivan Garcia Cortina. He looks on a good day.
Yep.
And yes, we know Hirschi's fast. We know that Albanese is quick. But Ivan Garcia Cortina, I think, Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong, he's taking that speed to another level, on paper at least.
I would give him, out of 5 stars, 4 stars, and the rest 2. If we were to do that, let's be perfectly honest with you, he is a man that can win, big group finishes, but has that ability to get over these climbs. And so he, I think, of all the riders here, should we come in a group finish, although he's isolated, unless one of his teammates, Verona, gets back on. I think it was Verona, isn't it? But and that's why he's willing to chase. He has gone through to the front. He won't get any assistance from the man from Arkea Samsic on his wheel. But he needs to team up now with AG2R and Yolo Kometa to try and bring this gap back. 23 seconds, Rob.
It's another fast and furious edition of Coppa Agostoni Giro delle Brianze. 2023 edition on the beautiful sunshine. And you're looking at the second group on the road. We flick quickly to the 5-star riders at the front. There were 4, and the 5th rider here on the back is Mark Hirschi, who made his way in stages across from what was a reduced peloton of around 30 riders on the final 2 climbs of the day. Rolling roads now, a lot of false flat downhill, a couple of kicks up, but nothing categorised or really mentioned too much in the road book. The 13 climbs that were on the list have all been ridden, and we're on our way to the town where we started, Lissone in Lombardy. Beautiful part of the world in northern Italy. And they're moving quickly. The gap's up at 32 seconds, and the difference here tactically now is, Matt, you've seen Formolo doing absolutely nothing, or at least the bare minimum for a good 10 kilometres. Now it's full gas for him, isn't it? It's trying to keep this gap nice and big, because it's advantage Hirschi in that group, you'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's advantage Hirschi, it's advantage UE Team Emirates with 2 from 5. Now the bigger question for me here, Arkea Samsic have got their man in the front. Their captain, Warren Balgi, he's got a pretty decent finish. He's aggressive, he's super smart. He's happy that they're the only team that might be thinking, okay, how do we unlock this race now? Are Jayco Alula. They've got numerical, they're on a parallel with UAE, 3v3, but they've only got one in front, and arguably it might not be Chris Harper, although I think he could sniff out a win here, but I think it's going to be harder for him than Zana and Yates. Both of those riders have got a good finish, so it's Jayco Alula now who needs to start thinking about this, arguably the most. Do they tell Chris Harper to sit on, not assist with the chase, but just see if this can come back together to reopen it again? Because I don't think right now, Rob, for Jayco, this is perfect. I don't think this is ideal for them.
Chris Harper is the man in the blue and white there, wearing 65, sitting fourth wheel. He's won before in his career, but he's never won at this level. He's won in Asia, in the Tour of Japan, and at the Oceania Continental Championships. Stage and GC at the Tour of Japan 4 seasons ago. That was what helped him move over to Jumbo-Visma, where he had 3 very successful years supporting riders like George Bennett, for example. I remember a fantastic race in northwest Italy that was won in Barolo, thanks to the help of Chris Harper. Bennett taking a memorable victory there. But again, doesn't say that he doesn't have the speed to do it. He just hasn't done it at this level yet.
Exactly.
There's a first for everything, Matt.
Yeah, totally, and that wasn't diminishing at all the class of this rider. It was more looking at it from a numbers perspective, and also who would you want out of this field from your team in a group at the finish here. Of course, we've got Hirschi pretty much sitting on the back. Formolo totally committed here. The 2 Frenchmen are going to ride. Lafay, you would argue, I mean, they've got a good team here. Victor Lafay, Simone Consoli, more of a sprinter, of course, Fernandez, but he's the only representative here. So Lafay will ride. He's also got a pretty decent turn of speed. We've seen that in the Tour de France. We've seen that before. But what UE have is that numerical advantage, and one of the big teams that has missed this, but they're languishing now, Rob, and going backwards at 135 Astana. That's Simone Velasco desperately trying to get some sense of organisation from the group behind.
A couple of the Italian teams from the 3rd division are trying to get involved as well towards the end.
Yeah, it's really fractured, isn't it? Green Project Bardiani also there as well, but no real cohesion. Iola Cometa don't need to do anything. Alpecin de Koenig, of course, haven't got anybody in the front group or the second group. They'll be a bit disappointed about that, that's for sure.
And the likes of Alpecin and Astana be disappointed there. 1 minute 35 now. Not impossible, but not looking great, because there's just no good organisation, not a good look about that group. It's too fragmented, too fractured. Not everybody wants the same things. It's looking good for this group as well now. Look at that gap, 48 seconds. And as long as Formolo can ride here, and as long as there's no full commitment behind and a real idea to do something from the likes of maybe Jayco Alula, then this group could well be contesting the win.
Yeah, I think Harper's now sat on. I think there's only going to be 3 riders riding in this group. It's going to be Formolo, who's 100% committed. He'll shut everything down and also do big turns on the front, which he's doing now on this. So we're still losing a little bit of elevation. We've got a couple of little rises as we look at some of the winners of the race over the last few years. Oh, it did. Marco Albertini did actually win this race.
So that's probably why I was confused. This was right up his street, wasn't it? This was right up his street.
Either this or a stage of the Tour of Romandy, which he dominated. But no, Formolo riding in a sacrificial manner now. But I don't think we'll see Harper do too much riding behind. But the gap is going up here, 51 seconds. I cannot see the bunch getting in contact at all. As you say, Rob, it's fragmented, and there just isn't the resource. It's only a small group. There's riders at 6s and 7s, no real organisation. And a lot of the remaining team leaders are in that group as well, so they're going to be unwilling just to sit on the function and bring it back. So I do think the race is going to be between this group and group number 2 on the road, although right now the favour is definitely there with this front group of 5.
Mike Hirschi took that GC victory in Luxembourg without winning a stage. He's been victorious in Italy since very recently, though, actually. won up the Coppa Sabatini, which is part of the Tour of Tuscany. Città di Peccioli. Second, a couple of days later, over in the east, in Cesenatico, at the Memorial Marco Pantani. Fifth, the day after that, at Trofeo Matteotti. He has some form in one-day races as well. And, of course, if you look back to the summer, he won that Swiss Championship. And straight after that, he was back in action, winning up in northern Spain, winning the Prueba Villafranca up in Navarra. I think that race takes place up in Basque-speaking Navarra. Now then, chasers fracturing all over the place.
Yeah, that's not certainly not going to help their chances at all.
Well, Lissi will be enjoying this ride, won't he?
Yeah, he certainly will. Lissi having a look round back in the fold, just on the wheel of Vincenzo Albanese. And unsurprisingly, well, Zanna isn't going to be doing much riding here, is he? Almost takes a look around, almost rolls through, but it's certainly not going to do anything at all, making it very easy. And just in the last kilometre or so, another 5 seconds have been added to the lead of our riders up in front. It's looking increasingly, even with just under 26 k's to go, that group might go all the way to the line, Rob.
"25 kilometres remain. Coppa Agostoni 2023, the start of the Trittico Lombardo. The 3 races warm up for the biggest race in this part of the world. Shake of the legs from Simon Yates behind. He'll be safe in the knowledge here at 58 seconds. Climbing to 59 as I finish that phrase. Call it a minute. Because his teammates up the road, Chris Harper, with a chance to do something special. The Australian from Melbourne is there. Little bit of a climb coming up now. We're on our way back to Lissone. Harper's issue is that he's got part of the group, as we see another Australian attacking, O'Connor going for the umpteenth time. But in that front group, there are 2 riders from UAE Emirates. Formolo doing the work for Marquesi, who on paper as well is the fastest in the group. Here's Short Box. Rejoined the chasing group and he's straight through them. He's the defending champion, let's not forget.
Yeah, he's just trying to bring back that little move, isn't he? Just negate that, that little attack from Ben O'Connor, just to make sure. It's looking like he's going to shut this down relatively easily. But we saw on this fast section of road, although we do start to gain a little bit of elevation, we only gain about 100 metres or so over several k's. So it's more of a long drag than a climb. But UAE Team Emirates just making sure that they keep their chances of winning this race as watertight as possible. You don't let the likes of Ben O'Connor go across the gap without shutting it down when you can. So a good bit of work there. So you've got that sharp acceleration and then it slows right down again. And the fastest group on the road at the moment is the group out in front. Davide Formolo looks around and of course he's going to get a bit of help from Warren Balgil. That's Warren Balgil. He's smart. But also, I think he'll fancy his chances from this group as well. But I haven't seen Harper do any work. And that, to me, does make a little bit of a sense. There's no way that Harper's going to drag 2 of the UAE Team Emirates riders to the finish here. He really needs to think about how he plays this one. There's still a chance of the group getting in behind, so they need to keep the tempo high. But Harper, in particular, needs to really think about this one and just see and watch the others. Because there's no guarantees that if this group does stay clear, Rob, that they'll actually go to the finish as 5. It could be just 1 or 2 riders that go off the front, and that's what Harper's got to keep an eye on. I don't think he'll be able to go clear on his own, but if he goes clear with Formolo, for example, you never know. It's all about combinations now. I don't think Harper will be allowed with the 2 UAE riders there to go clear on his own, so he's got to think about making sure he follows the right move, but it's slowed down enormously just behind.
Another move now from Albanese. It seems we've been very lucky to watch this race on the telly for the last few seasons. It's not a race that's always been televised around the world. This is a recent addition in the last 5 to 10 years to our stable of races we're very privileged to bring to you. I've always had this down as a real tactical race, just because of the parkour, and you talked about the combinations that can and usually develop over those final circuits. And because the race doesn't finish at the top or straight after one of those climbs, you've got this sort of 35 Ks, I know there's 23 of them left now, of relatively flat road where the groups have to keep working, where people might have teammates coming, where team orders might come in as well. It is fascinating from that point of view, and it really does live up to the classic billing, the semi-classic billing, this one.
No, definitely. It's got a really different dynamic. I think we all love a race with a big climb near the end. We love a mountaintop, a hilltop finish. But sometimes with those sorts of races, there's slightly less options. You know, quite often it will just come down to who's the strongest in the race. Clearly, because of the parkour here, because the fact we've just climbed under 3,000 metres throughout the day, as Albanese has distanced himself quite well from this group, still holding the gap at 1 minute and 4 seconds, is the fact that this is a race you need to have good legs, Rob, but importantly at the back end, as you quite rightly said, you need to really think about it. So I think it's a fascinating one to watch. I really, really do. Yeah, you need good legs. You need to have good morale. We're deep into the season. At the end of the season, you can almost see light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of riders wanting to put their feet up for a little bit of time. But it offers up a tantalising tactical proposition. And that's what we have at play at the moment.
No riders here, at least, with mental images of being on the beach, at least not visible. These guys are all working hard. They can see and are trying to snap up those final opportunities. O'Connor keeps trying, doesn't he?
He's got to. That's the only thing he can do. He needs to, if he wants to win this bike race, he needs to keep trying to attack. And the other rider doing the same thing is Albanese. But they can't. They're not just going to. What they won't do, Rob, and that's why we see this stop-start style of riding is. They're not going to just sit on the front of those two and carry all the other riders to the finish and get rolled in the sprint. They're not going to do that. They have to try and get a group, try and attack and go clear. But because of the strength in numbers behind, particularly with UAE, they're just going to be shut down left, right and centre. So it is quite a difficult proposition. OK, 2 seconds have taken off, but essentially it is still advantage this group in front. And that's what you get. You get guys like Diego Ulissi trying to go straight over the top as well.
Could be a UAE party at the front, breaking the resistance. It's the Tuscan star now, the wine lover, the sommelier himself, Diego Ulissi, trying to see what vintage 2023 autumn season is for him.
Yeah, such a reliable rider, isn't he? Super, super fast. Loves this sort of terrain, but that was a smart move. Again, quite often you discount that, or just sit in the group shutdown move, but why not? The best sort of form of defence quite often is attack. It's just put them on the back foot again, go over the top, and that is exactly what he's done.
And of course, for people watching, Matt, the cycling fans who might be thinking, well, what about the tactics here? It's very different, isn't it? If he was bringing other riders up, it's a no-no. But of course, if he can break the resistance and get across on his own, it's certainly a yes.
Definitely. You can see that cohesion has gone behind Arkea. And who's the rider from Arkea? I didn't quite catch his number, actually. The rider from Arkea.
Alessandro Verre, I think. Alessandro Verre, yeah.
Yep. The Italian. Very capable rider. And of course, Zana isn't going to do any of the chasing at all. But Diego Ulissi has managed to open up a little bit of a gap here. So a smart move by him. With 20 Ks to go, he has taken 6 seconds off. I don't think right now it'll change what's happening up in front. I would imagine that both Formolo and Mark Hirschi would have been informed of what the situation is, but the gap's a big one. Basically, this man's on his own. If he gets to within 10 or 15 seconds, they might start to ease off. But right now, the group in front need to keep that momentum. This man's feeling good, and if there's an opportunity, like you said, Rob, not to drag anybody else across, but to potentially give them even more strength in depth out in front, why not do it? And that is what this man is doing right now.
Look behind, his gap is 53 seconds. 5 to 10, you imagine, to those chasing. The last check we had of the bigger group, by the way, was over 1.5 minutes, and that's where the enthusiasm could go out the group. There could be all sorts happening, and I have a feeling that if we get another look at that group, I'm not sure we will, but if we get another look at that group, the gap will be bigger.
Yep, I think so.
as we approach the final 20 kilometres and just about move into them. The chasing group, second group on the road, is split into three. Here's Sjoerd Boks, the defending champion. He's alongside Ivan Garcia Cortina, Simon Yates. That's the third section of the group. The middle of it has been broken by Sjoerd Boks' teammate, Diego Ulissi. And UAE have two other teammates bossing the front of the race right now. Davide Formolo is driving it, and behind, waiting to try and pounce and win, is Mark Hirschi. A lot of chat about Mark Hirschi. Of course, he came on the scene, burst onto the scene, didn't he? Winning Tour de France stage in 2020 and the Tour de France that took place at the end of the summer, start of the autumn, because of the pandemic and what have you. Then he went very quiet, didn't he? Made a move to UAE, didn't see much of him. But this year, I think, Matt Stevens, is the year he's found consistency. He's won 14 times in his career. Half of them have come in 2023.
Indeed, yeah, quite incredible year this year, but he's had his fair share of injuries, hasn't he? I think so. Almost an entire season wiped out after, like you say, come bursting onto the scene with that win in Flèche-Wallonne, and then the win in the Tour de France, that solo victory there. But he's back to form, still only a young man, still only 25 years of age, but no, he is back to his best. As we look at his teammate now, Diego Ulissi, 50 seconds is the gap, so he's making inroads, but it's slow. And after that initial acceleration where you've got that, you're building into it, this is where the pain is going to start to bite. Initially, you've got that momentum, and you might take 10 or 15 seconds, but then essentially, well, it's simple mathematics. He has now got to ride faster than the group in front for a sustained period of time. And for one rider to do that, that's going to be very, very hard. Although he's doing a pretty decent job, 48 seconds, has properly snapped the elastic of the group just behind. But it does look like our defending champion, Bax, is going to bring this group back together and bringing one of the most dangerous riders in this group back into play as well, Ivan Garcia Cortina.
Zana is there. O'Connor. Verre in the red. Boks just closes that gap. Garcia Cortina, you just mentioned, Matt, is there, but they're at 1:06 now, whereas that man's at 45 seconds.
He's flying across the gap, isn't he? Batan in front. Davide Formolo kicks out of that corner. They're not easing off at all here. This is just the man in between is on his own TT mission. They don't want to ease up, because if they ease up a little bit, and the group number 3 on the road now containing Garcia, then the danger is it closes up. So UAE Team Emirates, although they do have a man chasing, they've still got numerical superiority. So strangely, and that's the way cycling is sometimes, this man is riding against his teammates out in front right now. They cannot afford to back off. Say it comes to 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they might ease slightly, but they're not going to ease off just yet, because that group just behind him aren't quite out of it at 1 minute and 3 seconds with 17 Ks to go. This isn't cut and dried yet. It's looking very good, but they cannot afford to ease off just yet, Rob.
Diego Ulissi with his 45 career wins to his name. He does it just about every year as well, doesn't he? The victory this year came at the Tour of Oman for him, winning in the Yiti Hills, top 5 in the GC there as well. And one of the favourite parts of his year now. Racing on terrain that suits him, the 34-year-old. He's got the gap down to 42 seconds. This group now at 1 minute and 10, so he's got 30 seconds on this group since bursting away. This
is a really good ride. He's clearly backing himself here, as we sometimes say. You don't attack from a group like that with those sorts of riders in front unless you think you can do it. He's a very calculated rider. When you look at some of his wins in the past, although we know how strong he is, there's a real sharp intelligence about Diego Ulissi as well. He thinks about what he's doing. It's still a hard ask, but he is incrementally eating into the lead of the riders out in front. And what may happen is we get a little bit closer towards the finish in the final 10 Ks, and if the gap stays at 1 minute and a half to group number 3 on the road, we might start to see the pace just diminish, just get knocked off from the group in front, as riders like Victor Lafay in particular, Warren Balgui, start to think about the final phase, the final end game, and therefore just back off a little bit and saving something to try and go all in or follow any moves. And that might play into the favour of Diego Ulissi, giving UAE Team Emirates a real ace in the pack.
just as they start to think about how they might beat the two UAE Emirates riders they're currently riding about,
yeah.
a third turns up.
Exactly.
41 seconds, 15 kilometres. Front of the race on the left-hand side of your picture, the follower, the lone chaser now. Ulissi on the right at 41 seconds, and confirmation still with those time gaps that he's got half a minute on those he left behind a few kilometres back. And it's still Formolo. Lafay is going to come through here. And just to see what Mark Hirschi does.
Now, big attack here by Albanese. Yeah, she just shuts that gap back down. Albanese tries again. What you ultimately need, I think, for the likes of Albanese and Cortina is a little group going clear with nobody from Jaco Alula. But, and of course, Vere is the other fly in the ointment as well. So Jaco Alula and the Stuart Bax as well, though he's dropped to the back of that group. It's still tight here. It's still not over. There's still a lot of firepower in this group. It's just not consistent. A little rueful shake of the head there from Albanese. He knows there's just not enough. There's firepower, but there's riders that aren't going to ride together. I mean, everybody else is just looking at the three riders in this group with interest of getting across the gap. That's why we say it time and time again, Rob. That's why it's all about strength in numbers, not just to drive the front, but to shut down things from behind. If you've got that, you really do have the ace card.
Racing here in Italy, there's action, as there has been throughout the last couple of months, off the bike as well in the transfer market today. Big news. Primož Roglic has reportedly been given the all clear to negotiate with other teams and leave Jumbo-Visma. If you like the latest on that story and everything else that's going on around the world of cycling, make sure you log on to our website, globalcyclingnetwork.com. Gives you just about everything with the top team that's put the brilliant news website together this year, all over the story. And of course, there's that story that we thought unthinkable a week ago that seems more and more likely as the days go by as well. The merger between Jumbo-Visma and Soudal Quick-Step. All of that and more on our website, of course.
Yeah, I think you could do a separate 2 or 3 hour podcast just on both of those subjects. So much to talk about, Rob, isn't there? But yeah, that's I believe Primož Roglic has said that he's going to announce where he's going by the 1st of October.
That's this Sunday. Kilometres continuing to tick by. The seconds are staying still, though, for Ulissi at the moment. Here are his teammates up the front. No panic if he doesn't get across. Of course, it's that extra tactical ace that could be the opportunity, as Matt Stevens was referring to. Here's their main man, though, sitting at the back. Mark Hirschi. Although, with Formula in there, if he's got it in him to make a move at any point, if there's a slow up or whatever, you know, there's still a couple of tactical cards to play here.
Oh, totally. And just see the Swiss champion just opting for the smooth surface, the concrete rather than the cobbles, as we just passed through this town with 12.5 k's to go. No, you're quite right. How do they play it? There's not many climbs here. You can just see we're still gently losing that elevation as we run off back towards Lissone, off this beautiful range of hills into the finish. It's a very straight, flat finish. The last 1.5 kilometres are arrow straight, in fact. The last corner comes with about 1,700 metres to go. And we go through the Flamme Rouge, little chicane before the Flamme Rouge, and then it's arrow straight in a southerly direction into the beautiful centre of Lissone for that finish. But yeah, what do? How do UAE Team Emirates play it? Do they just commit Formolo on the front just to drive hard? Simple as that. Or do they fire him up the road and force others to chase? And then Hirschi goes over the top of that. Again, with two, they're going to be really looked at. They really, really are. So, although they've got this numerical superiority, with that, Rob, comes an inordinate amount of pressure as well. You can get overly nervous when you have everything at your disposal. You've still got to execute that plan, and it can actually put more pressure on the riders with more riders than the other riders behind, who have more of a freer hand. It's just up to them, and then you get other alliances formed. I would say that Lafay and Barguil have already had a conversation. I won't chase you if it comes to the final. So there's so many different ways this could go, even on a flat finale. Should be great.
Yes, with all of that pressure comes the responsibility of trying to finish it off. Nobody would have wanted to get into this position, talking about UAE, of course, and then not win the race. But it happens, it's sport, we know that. Well, here we go, the games begin.
Yep.
And it's Davide Formolo, and it is Lafay who chases him. And of course, Mark Hirschi now has to play the patient waiting game himself and sit on as the anchor. And look at Formolo here. He has form, he's flying.
Well, that was a big move. He's on a huge gear up. There's just a little slight drag, but he just broke the rider that went to try. I think it was Barguil who tried to go, no, Lafay who tried to go with him. And now they are forcing Harper to try and bring this gap down. So we talked about what would UAE Team Emirates do? Would it be a lead out from Formolo? But right now, Formolo off the front, a strong move, snap the elastic, leaving the others to chase. And now Hirschi can just rest up, sit in the wheels. And on these sorts of roads, you're saving so much more energy sat in the slipstream with the riders in front. Good move here by UAE.
Fantastic. Davide Formolo given his opportunity. He's worked hard for his team already today, but he's got something left, and he's given that something. Now riding out in front. And look at the effort face, 10 kilometres to the line. Behind as well, safe in the knowledge that Ulissi is on his way over to this group. It's gone below 40 seconds now. Harper's there. This now is Barguil. Lafay will take his turn. You would expect that Hirschi won't.
Yep. That would be a little bit strange. He'll be sat on the back wheel, but the gap is stabilised, isn't it? But this means the other riders behind do have to commit, that they do have to try and ride it back. But look at the face of this man, utterly determined, 30 years of age now. Contract through the back end of next year. I don't think Formolo has had a win this season, and this would be super special. It really would. Again, such a likeable rider, and the way he's ridden over the last few years in the service of others primarily. He was a team leader a couple of years ago, wasn't he? But now, riding in the service of the likes of Tadej Pogacar in particular, he is a real force. But they're starting to open up this gap here, Rob.
Davide Formolo is away.
Yep.
Can they catch him in the final 9 kilometres? There's been some chat in the Spanish press, by the way, that although he does have a bit of a contract left, there may be conversations ongoing with Movistar. And I think that's something that I think the brilliant Inner Ring pointed out earlier on, that this is cycling starting to catch up with a lot of other professional sport again now. I think transfers with riders who still have time on their contract and these longer contracts are probably going to become the norm in the foreseeable future. You know, you'll have teams bidding to try and buy riders out of their contracts and maybe, you know, pay sort of a transfer fee, as we've seen on the odd occasion with the likes of Gianni Savio tying young riders down and Egan Bernal having that long contract but then being bought out essentially by Ineos. This is something that we're likely to continue to see growing into the sport, as we see 7 seconds and still just about growing for Formolo, but there's still 8.5 kilometres to go.
God, this is hurting. Another one of these just slight drags. Grimacing with the pain of this effort. Super fast series of hairpin bends again. This isn't even on the profile, it's just a tiny ripple, but this is actually quite a nasty little drag. It looks like the sort of climb that you get at the finale of Milano Sanremo, don't you? One of these very fast uphill drags, but he's a hairpin in front now. 7 seconds is the gap, but boy, is he having to go deep.
$8,200 metres to the line. Lissone and the trophy Agostoni awaits. Coppa Agostoni, Giro delle Brianze, pardon me. One of the races in northern Italy at this time of year that light up the road to Lombardy, even though we're already in Lombardy here itself. North of Milan and Bergamo, sort of in between them really, where we're racing today, Brianza.
Of course, that's the beauty of a Lombardia, and just like you say, about 8 days time. It's a classic that's held on a Saturday. This year, we finish in Bergamo. Start in Como. Last year we finished in Como. They flip-flap between the two beautiful destinations. Tadej Pogačar on the start line again. Can he make it 3 from 3? Primoz Roglic will know his destination apparently then. He's riding as well, and Remco Evenepoel also going to be riding the final monument of the year. And this is one of these, well, it's more than a warm-up race. It's a race of real significance in its own right. 76th edition of this race, but 8 seconds. He's eked out another 1 second here, Rob, and it's looking good. Of course, Formula out in front. It's 100 committed. There's no ambiguity at all about what his job is now. It's to try and force his way, power his way to the line. Whereas behind, the likes of Lafay and Barguil and Harper, they know that they've got his teammate on his wheel who's got the fastest finish. So they're going to be very, very aware of. They want to keep the pace high and work together, but they won't be pressing on as hard as this man in front. And look at this, 18 seconds now for Formula.
Davide Formolo might have just snapped the elastic. 6.5 Ks to the finish line. If he can keep this up, he's on his way to just a 5th career victory and a first in over 3 calendar years.
Wow.
It was August 2020, shortly after the restart at the Dauphiné, the 3rd stage, that Davide Formolo last took a road win. When he wins, they're big. First career win was at the Giro in La Spezia. Backed that up 4 years later with a stage victory in Catalonia. Same year he was the national champion in Italy. And then just after the first of the COVID lockdowns was when we got going again. Victory on stage 3 at the Dauphiné. Again, since then he's been there or thereabouts in plenty of races. He's been a part of fantastic team victories. He's been a part of a great team plan today that might just be about to come off. The gap is coming down a little bit. I wonder if he's just running out of gas a little. 15 seconds as Harper chases.
Yep.
Lafay is still there. Barguil, but here she waits, and this is perfect for the Swiss as well.
Absolutely perfect. They've got a man in front with a good buffer. And although I said they'll be holding a little bit back, they're still riding exceptionally quick here, but it's going up. 19 seconds now. Nearly 20 seconds as we get a rear-on view of a Davide Formolo. As you said, this would be a special victory, and I tell you what, I don't think his teammate Mark Hirschi would mind at all giving this man an opportunity. It was a perfect foil, wasn't it? And actually quite an unexpected time to go. I thought they might keep it together, but a perfect move. Around 12 kilometres to go, 11.5 Ks to go, he made his move. And Lafay, we know the class of Lafay, couldn't get across the gap. He broke him, didn't he, that move, up that ever such a slight drag. So clearly Formolo has got great legs as he finds another second now, Rob. 5 Ks to go.
Well, they've got several leaders, haven't they, including Tadej Pogačar to come back into the team for the Giro di Lombardia. But if there's a hierarchy or a ranking, there might be a step up incoming for Davide Formolo, who's now into the final 5 Ks. The only one-day race he's ever won was the Nationals, which we all know is a very, very different affair. It's a serious affair in Italy, I know that, but it's a very, very different race. This is something that he hasn't experienced before at this level in this type of racing.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Like you say, they've had an amazing year so far. 52 wins on the board so far this year, Rob, for UET members. The last of which came from the man that sat at the back, the overall, the score of the Tour of Luxembourg. Yeah, this will be special. And as you say, Robert, do you know what? I didn't realise that. I knew he'd won the Italian Nationals, of course, but he pointed out this would be a first single-day win. A real significant point in this man's career. A truly significant point. 21 seconds, and that is a study of pain, isn't it? 3.9 Ks to go. We've got around 5 minutes of suffering before he crosses the line. Can he hold on now?
Oh, we know he can do it in one-day racing. As I said, he's been a feature. He's been on the podium in Liège. Strade Bianche as well. In this very Trittico Lombardo, the 3 Lombardy races building up to the Giro di Lombardia, he was second in Tre Valli Varesine. He's been up there in his own Veneto Classic. He's a rider who comes from the Veneto, by the way. So he can do it. He just hasn't really managed to finish the job. Today, though, it's going to be a different story because the gap still grows. It's 24 seconds now for Davide Formolo, who's on his way to victory.
Oh, this is looking good, isn't it? 50 Ks an hour. He is absolutely motoring here. That little bit of wind that's blowing isn't helping him, but he's still managing to keep the speed high, gritting his teeth. He'll be getting that information through, buoyed by the fact that he's moving ever so slightly quicker than the group that were behind. And now, Rob, with the gap at 24 seconds, with only 3,000 metres to go, the group behind will know that they're riding now for second place too.
And that, in turn, changes how they ride. Formolo will have his legs screaming in pain, but he knows that there's a trophy at the end of this. The Coppa Agostoni, to be precise. The first one-day win outside of the Nationals, and just a 5th career win is on the way. One last-ditch attempt to try and chase from the likes of Barguil, Harper and Lafay, whereas Mark Hirschi can sit as an interested, entertained spectator as his teammate, who attacked unexpectedly with over 11 kilometres to go, attempts to finish the job. And he's on the way to finishing the job, let's be honest. He's almost 3/4 of a kilometre in front now. That equals nigh on half a minute. And there's just over 2 kilometres for ride for Davide Formolo, now 30. Once touted as a potential Grand Tour winner by Ivan Basso, who was one of his mentors. The fact that he won a Giro stage just 4 days into his first Giro meant that that noise would grow, but he settled into a different role. He always looks like he's enjoying himself when he's riding his bike. Today, he's going to get that rare winning feeling.
Yep, he's going to savour it too. And with the gap now at approaching half a minute, Rob, he can really savour it. He can enjoy the finishing straight. 1,800 metres to go. He's got one more turn before he heads into the long finishing straight. He'll almost be able to see the finish for a good part of a kilometre in the distance. And he'll check the gap and see empty tarmac behind him, and he'll know that the win is his. So a special moment, and he's going to enjoy this one. He really is. 33 seconds to the group behind. Hirschi still poised at the back, looking to try and get a UAE 1-2, one would imagine. And I think he'll be more than happy that his teammate is going to take that win today without a shadow of a doubt. Hirschi, of course, with 7 wins on the board this year, he won't mind sharing them out.
It's all about hunting impacts when you get to this stage of the season and this type of racing as well. And UAE have done that perfectly today. Box, the defending champion's been up there. We've seen Ulissi too. There's Mark Hirschi. The likes of Grossschartner has done his bit earlier on, as has Jan Christen. Vega Stockelong, and I'm sure did a lot of the riding when UAE were out there early on. This is Formolo, and now they want a 1-2 because Mark Hirschi takes off. Looks like he is getting a gap as well.
Oh,
he's left them behind, and this is domination by the Emirati team.
Wow, didn't leave it to a sprint, didn't fancy just risking it. Certainly not a play for the win. He's not going to shut the 500 metres gap. In fact, can almost see the finishing straight down in front. The road is so long and straight, but a good move there by Hirschi. Devastatingly violent turn of speed, but it's all about this man. Davide Formolo looks around, and he's going to enjoy this one.
Finish line ahead, a chance to sit up and savour the moment. Yes, he's done it. So often a contributor to big races, not often enough a winner. But they've done it as a team today. UAE Emirates play their cards right. And at this edition of the Coppa Agostoni, their ace is Davide Formolo. And not only is it going to be victory for them, it's going to be 1-2 as well. The man we thought they were riding for, the man who was poised to try and take it from a small bunch, is there to take second place. 7 wins already this season. He's done everything he could do today as well. It's 1-2 for UAE. Second place goes to Mark Hirschi. And behind, the consolation prize is being fought for. Harper in the blue and white, the Australian. In the red on the right, as we look at it now, you can see it's Barguil. Harper's still out there in front, but Barguil's there as well. Lafay's not far away, and he's got the acceleration as well. There is Lafay coming through the centre, and it's Victor Lafay who makes the podium, completes it, and is third at this year's Coppa Agostoni. The Trittico Lombardo is off to a bang, and it's a home win for Italy, courtesy of Davide Formolo.
Fantastic win, perfectly executed. He had to have the legs, but they played an absolute blinder. We were talking about options in the last few Ks, weren't we? And then bang, with 12 Ks to go, he launches one, taking us by surprise and the rest of the breakaway. But the fact that Lefay immediately responded and couldn't cross the gap says a lot. That wasn't just about tactics, although they were perfectly deployed on this stage. This man had the best legs as well. Big turn of speed, held it, opened up the gap, and there was nothing anybody can do about it. And then to cap it all, the cherry on the cake for UAE was the second step on the podium too by Mark Hirschi. But a good ride by Lefay to round out the podium for Cofidis. But a popular win and a mightily important one for Davide Formolo too.
Il Roccia, Formolino, flies to the win. And look at what it means to the fans. Those who know him, those who followed his career. And again, a man who has been a real protagonist in the sport for the last decade or so, the best part of it at least. But it's just a 5th career win. It's a big one.
Like you say, it's a popular one, isn't it? Really is. He's just one of those, like 30 years of age now, as you say, Bob, but he's been a constant, isn't he? Think about all the races we've commentated over the last few years and the amount of time we've mentioned this man. Wonderful, wonderful victory.
Bravo Davide indeed. The handshake from UAE staff helping him out. Well, he's helped that team to a 53rd season victory today. And in the meantime, outside of the top 5, these are the places ready to be played out for. Say that 6th place has already come in Ulisi. And it's Ivan Garcia Cortina looking for what I think is going to be 7th. But look at Boxco as well. He was sprinting to the line alongside Alejandro Valverde last year, beating him at his own game. In the end, not entirely clear who took that, but final 10 places up for grabs there. This was the winner, though. Man who topped out the top 10. Davide Formolo, admiring his handiwork and enjoying a well-deserved moment to savour as the winner of the 2023 Coppa Agostoni Giro delle Brianze.
Davide Formolo, un ritorno alla vittoria incredibile sul suolo
italiano. Back to win an incredible win.
Grazie
well
mille.
Done.
Wow, bellissimo.
Well, thanks. Beautiful, absolutely brilliant.
Nel cielo e dai, ce l'abbiamo fatta. Oggi è stata una giornata importante per la White Team Emirates. Forse tutti aspettavano Hirschi.
A really important day for UAE. Maybe you were looking at Hirschi. We thought you were riding for Hirschi today.
Sì, appunto, originariamente dovevo fare l'andatura per lui.
Of course, I should be working for Hirschi. That was the idea.
Poi sono andati via in questi 4 e quando Hirschi è
scattato dietro,
ho lavorato davanti per aspettarlo.
Of course, we're waiting to see if they were working together.
Il gruppetto in fuga.
We tried to get that breakaway away, and then there was that little bit of an uphill, and I thought, oh well, give it a try. If it doesn't work, I'll just be on the wheel and wait with you. And then, wow, I tried, I had the legs and I did it. Nearly the end of the season, things to go for yet. Yeah, we've got a good 2 weeks, well, next week, I guess. Ternocchi, Piemonte. Of course, there's a couple of nice races in Veneto as well. It seems like it's done, but there's some big objectives left. And that was Davide Formolo explaining what we all saw. The plan was to work for Hirschi, but he saw an opportunity. He grabbed it. Why did he grab it? He's the race winner. Top 10 in the 76th edition of Coppa Agostoni Giro delle Brianze. Formolo leading the charge with a half-a-minute win over his teammate Hirschi. Lefay finishes in 3rd place. And looking back, they're still fighting for every place. Points matter. Points bring prizes, and well, as we found out at the end of last season, points can bring promotion.
Exactly. Already a fierce scrap there for the minor placings.
Here's the top 10 again. Formolo, Hirschi, Lafay, with Barguil and Harper just missing out the podium. Then it was Ulissi all alone, with Garcia Cortina, Albanese, Box and Verre completing a very, very big name top 10. What a feeling, eh, Matt? I mean, someone who's done it yourself, raising your arms at the end. And again, not a serial winner, Formolo. There must be special days when they do arrive.
Well, definitely. As you say, last time he lifted his arms like that was 3 years ago. So it's but he's in a different role now in the team. He knows what his job is, but when given the opportunity, and as he explained at the end, they took his chance. They had numbers at the front like they wanted to. It worked out, but no. And the fact that he could properly just sent up field there when it wasn't as if the group were just behind him and there was no real sense of elation, but the fact he could absorb it and just give it everything to the line, just it's massively important for him. And as you say, it's not something he's done very often, and the first time ever in a one-day, save for the national championship. So an important victory for him. Watch out for him over the coming races as well. We often see riders get extraordinary veins of form towards the back end of the season. Hirschi, Sivakov, those sorts of riders. So watch out for that man. It'll be a very, very important foil, of course, for his team leader, Tadej Pogacar. I think he's doing Tre Valli Valicine as well at the back end of in the next few days as well. So he's got a few races still to come this season, but they have got a formidable team that's going to line up for the Giro di Lombardia. But no, massively important feeling for him. And I got the sense just at the start of that interview that it was quite emotional as well. Could just it was, but no, powerful and massively important as a bike racer. Before you settle into a particular role in a team, it's all about winning races, and he's done it.
And Mark Hirschi played his part. Another
nice.
Podium place for him. It's a team game. And when people ask, how is it a team sport? Well, today was the perfect demonstration, wasn't it?
Yep, totally. It was perfect. They were always the team on the front foot today, or towards the back end of the race as well. And after that early break went clear, they were the team that forced the pace. And one of the reasons that we had so few riders left in the peloton.
Time for the podium then. Victor Lafay steps onto the third spot. It's been a fantastic year for him, hasn't he? And well, we all know he likes Italy. He won that Giro stage when nobody was expecting it. Made his name doing that. And this year, that long Cofidis drought. But he needs to find out which the third step of the podium is. Here we go.
That's weird. That looks like that is the second stop, because that's the second highest step.
I think they've placed it wrong, you know.
Yeah.
He's going to be standing taller, isn't he, than Hirschi, but
maybe we can branch out into podium logistics, me and you.
If it all goes wrong, that's where we're headed next.
Definitely.
Find it as a local kermesse next year, eh? There is Victor Lafay then, that fantastic Tour stage win. Talking of Tour wins, the Tour of Luxembourg belonged to Mark Hirschi, just as the Tour of Hungary did this year. Takes his trophy. He takes a symbol of the Lombardy region there as well, that white and green logo that he was given. Might be controversial if they get Davide Formolo, man from the Veneto, to hold a Lombardy symbol up. Back in the centuries ago, warring regions. But yes, it's an Italian who takes the victory.
Still got the face of a young schoolboy, isn't he? The real young face, isn't he?
See what I like about him as well, as with Mark Hirschi, he wears his cap the right way.
Proper traditional, that, isn't it? Peak up.
Brilliant.
Look and watch and learn, folks. Peak up on the podium. And he's got a little bit of luft there as well, which is always lovely to see.
Yes, yes.
No, great. Good to see him on the top step of the podium again. Now, I think that'll be a super popular win within the team.
There's one for Mitch. Maybe be talking with Davide Formolo soon. Time for the Prosecchino moment. Well, nearly. I'm not quite sure they know what the order of the ceremony is here. Here we go. First the flowers.
Yes.
Photo with important people.
It's a classic little bit, a beautiful little bit of Italian chaos on the podium. I do like that. But no.
A lot of VIPs and important people to satisfy.
Brilliant stuff.
Oh, can you stretch your... I'm not sure there's enough room. Ooh.
Don't want an injury.
It ends in tears, that, doesn't it? It ends in tears, that.
A late season ankle strain's the last thing you want before in Lombardia, isn't it?
Yeah, they would have perhaps close to an entry into sports strangest injuries there.
Luckily not. Great stuff.
Just the riders requested to stay on the podium, get their moment and their photo.
Some very cool cats on the podium there as well, wasn't there?
Enjoying their afternoon out in Lissone. Highlights of the day then. Started just before 11:30 in the morning local time. Nice warm day in northern Italy. Starting on Via Bottego, just outside of Lissone. We saw the action with just over 50 kilometres to go. By this time, the morning breakaway broken up, gobbled up. Rodriguez, Tizza, Verce, Bue and Hermons no longer a factor. This was the group that was away, including Formolo, Lafay, Bargill and Harper were there as well. Hirschi would make his way across on the last lap. After the likes of Ben O'Connor had tried. Alpecin de Koenig on their way to missing out, as were all of the riders in that group. Front of the race, this four. And there'd just be that one more addition in the shape of Mark Hirschi, whose acceleration was pretty brutal when it came. Simon Yates would try and get across. He'd make the second group on the road. Of course, had to be careful with his own teammate up the road. Hirschi did too. That's why when he made his move, it was so strong and it had to be so strong. Didn't tow anybody with him. His move would come on this next climb here. The final climb of the day. He's at the back of this group already preparing it. A strong group as well. Former Italian champion Zana there when it did come. Elastic was snapped clean. And over the top here is where he'd make his way on. Final climb of the day, Lissolo. 34 Ks left, 5-star riders. How would it work out? Well, without too much organisation in the chase was the answer. Diego Ulisi got fed up of it. He managed to break the elastic, and then 11 kilometres remaining, a little bit of an uphill. Formolo stronger than the rest by some margin. And gave a free ride to his teammate to come in second. Formolo to win the race. And the rest of the group fighting for the scraps of the third place. Winning those scraps, Victor Lafay. But it was just a 5th career win for Davide Formolo, now 30 years of age. First one-day win outside of the national championships. Showing what a strong bike rider he is.